Greetings, boys and girls, and welcome to the Bob and Emil Show. Here we go. I mean, week 4 of the NFL season. We're going to try and do this more and more, people, as we go along, trying to get this schedule normalized like the NFL season needs to normalize. We're having that issue. You've heard me say it a million times, and if you haven't, I'll say it one more time. This is 1,000,001. September is the new August. It takes some time for these things to come together, and there's a lot of volatility we're dealing with through the course of the first month of the season, and hopefully things will start falling into, a little more predictability is what we're hoping for as we get into week 4 and into October and beyond. So and maybe what we saw Thursday night, Emil Cadlick, and that is Emil Cadlick, publisher here at footballdiehards.com. I am Bob Harris, by the way. And maybe the first sign of normalcy was the Thursday night game, the Vikings and the Rams. The Rams putting up tons of points. I thought it was very interesting when I started getting my emails from all the various websites that host the leagues that I'm in. You get those Thursday night emails and you see a lot of scores like 5-7 or 10 to something. I saw 102-0 was one of the scores that I saw. 55-10. It was a great night. Jared Goff, 5-touchdown night. Obviously, Cooper Kupp exploded. Robert Woods got something done. Brandon Cooks, Todd Gurley. Pretty much everyone there that you needed to count on got it done. And on the other side of the ball, got enough Kirk Cousins to feel good about yourself if you had him. Adam Thielen is Stephon Diggs as well. Kyle Rudolph.
It was a blast. It was so much fun to watch. It's such
as you watch the Rams, Emil, just your general impressions on where this offense can go.
Well, it's hard to go better than it just went. What the worry is they got to spread it out, and you're not going to always get 5 touchdowns passing. So some guys are going to lose out. You're going to have guys obviously that have a floor and they won't do as well. I thought it was interesting that Gurley took a back seat, but he still had like 150 yards, 4 catches, and a touchdown. That's a nice bad day for Todd Gurley.
Right.
Like 20 fantasy points.
Right. And I think those receivers, talking to a number of people who cover that team locally on a daily basis, every one of them has said the same thing. Who's the wide receiver 1? Who's the guy we want? And they've all answered the same. And basically the answer is whoever's open. That's how this offense is designed. They're not playing favorites. No one goes into the game as their number 1 or designated number 1. So it's going to be a little something. Look, I don't know how you sit any of those guys.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can sit them. They're starters.
Depends on your options. If you've been rolling Cooper Kupp as your wide receiver 3 and you've got 3 really super good options ahead of him, there are going to be weeks that make you want to do that. But I don't know. It's going to be very tough. We wanted to talk about a few teams of interest tonight, and we'll start with Tampa Bay, where Ryan Fitzpatrick, through the first 3 weeks, has 1,230 passing yards. He's first in the NFL. He has 11 passing TDs. He's second in the NFL. A passer rating of 124.8, second in the NFL. And a 70.3% completion percentage, 6th in the NFL. The only bad spot was basically a slow first half against the Steelers in this past Monday night, where he threw 3 interceptions on consecutive drives, including a pick 6. So that was a little rough. Jameis Winston comes back. And I guess over time, guys started 45 or 48 career games. He won't start this week. It's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Bears. What's your approach if you have Fitzpatrick right now?
Wow. It all depends on who else you have. I think you got to start him this week. I think it'd be hard for him to put Winston in so quickly. He's just got back.
Yeah, they won't start him this week. And I guess the thing is they got to bye the next week. And I think some of this is going to depend on his success. even in the loss against Pittsburgh, it was good enough, you would think, to keep him in the game. It was this week, obviously, with Winston just back on a short week. I think that's the excuse they had this week. And it seems at some point they need to see what Winston is. Is he really the quarterback of the future? And I guess the question then is, when does Ryan Fitzpatrick turn back into the pumpkin? When does he we've all seen this before. Well, not to this level, but he'll go great guns and then lit.
He threw 3 interceptions, but 2 of them were tipped. The announcers didn't get the one he was standing in his zone was actually tipped. And they started immediately, here he's back. It's him again. That's why he's played on 27. Like, shut up. Look at the film. You missed it. He had a bad game, but he recovered. He was cool. The chemistry seems to be there. Of course, it's easy to say that with the start, but the way the players are talking, Winston, it's gonna be hard to bench him, but it's not going to take much. I'm going to say it's if Winston's ready, which we don't know. We won't know what's going on in practice really, but they'll switch him. But I mean, if Fitzpatrick isn't really doing that badly, the team is really behind him. The city's behind him. But as a fantasy owner, you could expect any time after the break, after the bye, they could yank him at halftime.
Yep, you need to make contingencies and have a plan in place. If you've been rolling with Fitzpatrick, obviously you've probably drafted 2 quarterbacks. If you're in leagues where your roster size is tight and you've been rolling with one, waiting for the bye weeks, etc., you'll obviously have to make some kind of change this next week anyhow. So whether that's you want to make a double move. You can't, if you're already tight and up against a roster limit. You want to hang on to Fitzpatrick and add another quarterback. Can't necessarily add Winston. You need someone that can start this week. So that's going to be tricky. I think, this one is kind of simple for me. As long as they're winning, this coach, Dirk Cutter, kind of on the hot seat going into the season. I think the underestimated part of this whole situation has been giving Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, who up until this year did not call plays, is calling plays now. Seems to be a bit more aggressive with it and pushing the envelope a little more trusting in his targets, or certainly his quarterback, and who is a little more trusting in his targets. I mean, Mike Evans looks phenomenal, right?
Yeah, I think there's a chemistry now. I think last year, I watched Evans last year, and I was annoyed by him. He just looked like he didn't care. He's making offensive penalties. I get this feeling that they're have much more chemistry and they've really gelled together.
Yeah,
but
he looks dead on.
I mean, even they got down. They were at home. They had four turnovers. 3 interceptions and interceptions. Yet they 4 interceptions and a fumble. Yet they still got within 3 and had a chance to win that game. They didn't blow it. They didn't lose their cool.
It's been a little boom busty, for Deshaun Jackson, and we saw that. We've already seen that again this year. So I mean, I would expect that to continue. I guess the question is at what point do we start worrying about those other guys? Is the chemistry going to be there? Chris Godwin. We had a little bit of something to hang our hat on from last year, right? So, late in the season, he fared pretty well with Jameis Winston at quarterback heading into the playoff game. So, I think there's a little something there.
He had a little trouble that last game. He had 10 targets. He caught 5. He dropped a ball, fumbled a ball. But still, he got the touchdown near the end to get him closer. So, I think he's
seems like the more consistent play than Deshaun Jackson, who looks like, look, we all know what Deshaun Jackson is. He's going to make big plays. He's going to have big games, and he's going to disappear at times. I think Godwin seems like a little safer floor player.
I agree. If I had one of the two, I would go with Godwin at this point. And I did. I said that at the beginning of the season.
One of the other things about Fitzpatrick, he's a little better recognizing the pass rush and getting rid of the ball at least a little before it arrives. We saw that a number of times Monday night. Winston's been sacked 22 times, fumbled 7 over the last 6 games. Fitzpatrick sacked just 8 times and has fumbled none over his last 6. So that's interesting. Another little tidbit that I came across this week, you'll find it in this week's team notes if you read up. Looking at fantasy scoring since 1950, if you look at the quarterback scoring through the team's first 3 games, Ryan Fitzpatrick is the most ever, 97.4. points through the first 3 games. This is using ESPN scoring. Patrick Mahomes of this year is second at 92.4. Peyton Manning of 2013 with the Broncos with 89.7 is third. Drew Brees of this year is 88 points. And Steve Young from 1998 had, I think, 88.
That's remarkable. So, that's absolutely remarkable.
Right. So just it's been a great start for Fitzpatrick. So anyhow, I guess the conundrum for all of us is going to be figuring out how we do this going forward. But the decision may be made for us if the Bucs keep a winning record. I think that's going to be the vital the vital aspect of all of this is how they fare. The New England Patriots, Emil, this offense is not playing well. They've lost, first time they've lost back-to-back games by double digits since 2002. They've played 244 games since then. That hasn't happened before. They ran 47 offensive plays this past Sunday, their fewest since 2010.
Wow, almost as bad as Arizona.
Right, almost, right? The point differential of -20 is the worst through 3 games of a season since 1995. They've been outscored by 35 points since halftime of week 1. That's 71-36. It's not been pretty. One of the things that's been the common thread and seems to be very effective is shutting down Rob Gronkowski. Has just 13 catches for 189 yards and 1 touchdown this season. The last 2 games, though, the Jaguars effectively double-teamed them. Detroit effectively double-teamed them. It's getting a little frustrating. Can Josh Gordon save the day for him?
No, but I don't think so. But you get Edelman back in week 5, and if Gordon can get healthy in this couple, he could make those two could make the difference. And Sony Michel, excuse me. It's going to take me half a year to say it right. I probably didn't say it right then. He's got to start stepping up now because they'll need him. Well, he dropped a couple passes in that late 3rd, early 4th. He played well. He could really make a difference. He's got to catch those passes though to really help.
The thing that was interesting to me about those drops that you mentioned was that he was still in the game. Right,
yeah,
we're late in a losing effort, clearly behind, and it wasn't James White. We didn't really see the full dose of James White until the 4th quarter. Rex Burkhead went on injured reserve on Wednesday, so that opens the door to Sony Michel to get a full workload. Coming off the knee issues, kind of ramped his way up to speed. How much faith do you have in them? I mean, there's not a lot of choices. It's Michel, James White, first-round investment. How confident are you in Michel going forward now that there is no Rex Burkhead?
He's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the targets. He's going to get the touches. And depending on your kind of league, he could even have been a free agent coming into this week. Maybe you can make a trade. If you're really hurting at running back, you could try and acquire him whichever way. I'm not saying he's going to do it. I'm not sitting here jumping on my table saying he's going to do this, but he's going to get the shot. And New England is the kind of team who can help a guy become successful even as a rookie running back, as have better probabilities of doing it. So I'd try and get him on my team.
Right. If I was able, I would jump up on my table right now. I felt like the last couple of weeks that the Sony Michel train was leaving the station. I want to be on it. I think that, look, we look at all the rookie running backs right now that we had high expectations for. Who now has suddenly the clearest path to workload? It's Sony Michel. Where maybe we would have thought it was Rashad Penny based on, early on, maybe we would have thought it was Ronald Jones, who has yet to be active despite
hasn't even been active.
Healthy.
Wow.
Right, and it's not like Peyton Barber's lighting up the world ahead of him.
Not.
Maybe this week we start seeing a little more out of Penny. Chris Carson listed as questionable, but I don't know that that'll be. I mean, they seem to really like Carson. This may be more of a process. Royce Freeman, look, he's getting some workload, and it's sufficient. He needs to do a little more with it.
Yep.
But he needs to do a hell of a lot more if he wants to keep Phillip Lindsay on the bench. So I think just right now, when you look at Kerryon Johnson's coming on too. We shouldn't dismiss him just because he's a Detroit Lion. Ran for 100 yards last week, the first 100-yard game for the Lions in 5 years, I guess it is, since 2013.
Yeah.
Reggie Bush did it. So I wouldn't expect that every week either, though, right? I mean, I don't know if Detroit's gonna.
I think it's a good point, though. Hindsight's 20/20. We don't have hindsight, so you really want to. I'm trying to do 2 things at once, but I'm not good at. Really, this is like you said. This is an opportunity if it doesn't cost you too much, or if you've had them on your roster, to acquire Sony. Because there's real opportunity here. He is a rookie, et cetera. You've described all the things there. He could end up being a really productive, running back too.
Yes.
Missed the first game. He scored 5 PPR fantasy reports 2 weeks in a row. But
right, the playing time is coming. And that's, I guess, for me, still the first and foremost, what I'm looking for is opportunities, and I think he's going to get them. And hopefully this offense gets on track once they get all the pieces back. We'll see if Josh Gordon plays this week. He and Gronk are both questionable this week. By the way, expect Gronk to play, but it's hard to say yet with Gordon. Josh McDaniels said he's picking up the offense. The key to this is gaining the trust of Tom Brady. Some guys do that right away, says Randy Moss. Some guys never do that, says Chad Johnson, amongst many. So we'll see how that works out. I'm interested to see just your predictions on this offense getting on track this week against Miami.
Well, I think they will. I think they're smart enough to. They're really hurting. I know they need Michelle back and Josh Gordon. I don't know if we don't know really how that hamstring is, whether he's even going to be active. They can find a way to do it. They'll find a way to do it. I think they're smarter than Miami, even though Miami's defense has been playing well. I think they're going to recover, and then they're going to get Edelman back, and then maybe Josh Gordon a week later. Who knows? Maybe this week. And they're too smart. They're too smart. They find a way. So I would bet with them this week.
All right, we got some quarterback changes this week, Emil Cadlick. We'll start with Arizona, where Sam Bradford wasn't good. The Cardinals' offense hasn't been good. David Johnson hasn't been good. Larry Fitzgerald hasn't been good. Nobody's been good. So they're making the switch to Josh Rosen, their first-round pick. I thought coming out of college, look, I'm not the draftnik, right? So I just going on what I've seen and kind of my understanding of the people I trust. He's the top quarterback coming out in terms of skills, arms, mental process, etc. We'll see if he has the pieces around him. I guess the hope is that he can get David Johnson on track. Might Seattle's defense, that's been about as generous to running backs as anyone in the league, I think they ranked 30th or so. Might that be the real key to David Johnson? And might that be David Johnson be the key to Josh Rosen succeeding?
It's certainly going to help. I don't have the snap counts in front of me, but I think Arizona's got one of the least amount of offensive snaps in the league. They haven't sustained drives. Not necessarily Johnson's fault completely. And if they can start sustaining some drives, it's going to change everything. They're just not getting the first downs. They're not getting opportunities. I don't think David Johnson's doing anything wrong. Can Josh Rosen, he obviously was crisp when he came in. He looked good. They put him in a tough position. He didn't get the win. Can they find a way to minimize his mistakes? He's going to start making mistakes. Hopefully, what did Sam Bradford do? He had a lead, 14-0 lead, and he threw two interceptions and fumbled once. That didn't, that's not what you want a seasoned veteran to do with a 14-point lead. I think it's going to be fun watching Rosen, and let's hope that if they can sustain some drives, Fitzgerald and David Johnson get some better fantasy numbers.
Right. Just to flesh that out a little bit, 148 snaps. That's the lowest in the league by about 20, it looks like to me, just at a glance on the NFL snap count page on the website. Most teams well over 200. The lower end teams for the most part. You got 178 for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, another team that's not throwing the ball very well. Beyond that, everyone else is up in the 190s, 200s. So Atlanta, I think, has the lead there with 240. 220. So 237 for actually Baltimore. Baltimore, the best red zone offense in the NFL. Wow. We'll talk about that in a minute. So look, I often talk about the optimism of the unknown, and we know how bad this offense was with Sam Bradford. We don't know how bad it might be with Josh Rosen. So you get a little excited, and I think Cleveland, that's the other place we're seeing quarterback change. Baker Mayfield comes in. Look, just the level of excitement that team had, you could just see a shift in the last game, a Thursday night game, when he came in against the Jets and took over, 14-0, leading the team to victory. He looks like he'll not only keep this thing rolling, and it wasn't that bad from a fantasy perspective, right? Yeah. He looks like he'll maybe take this to another level. Or are we just seeing a repeat of Sam Darnold's week 1 against Detroit, and it all comes down to earth this week? How do you feel about it? You're going to have ups and downs. They're still rookie quarterbacks. They touch the ball every play. They're going to make mistakes. You're going to have ups and downs, but you have ups and downs with every team. You can't expect the guy to all of a sudden have that level consistently. But the excitement was because we could see that talent, and he immediately used that talent. Mayfield did, and I think Rosen's similar. And I think it's going to be
continue to help those teams. It's going to be a good fantasy situation and hopefully improve these people. But you're going to have bad games or you're going to have bad quarters, and don't panic.
Right. I think right now Jarvis Landry is pretty much a locked-in, fantasy starter.
15 targets. 15 targets last week.
And that's what you're hoping for. And you're hoping he can drag guys like David Njoku, who we had. Njoku, I heard him say it right the other day. Njoku. Njoku, he likes.
Njoku,
Yeah, and so, look, maybe, Duke Johnson gets a little more involved at some point. But right now, Carlos Hyde is getting the job done for all of us, that scoring.
Just looking at the box score last week, Antonio Callaway, 10 targets. He only caught 4 balls for 20. 10 targets, 15 to Landry, and Njoku, 2 targets. So,
right. By the way, a lot of upside for Callaway. Don't forget, he's the only reason he went in late in the draft season. He's a first-round talent, but he just didn't play last year, had a lot of off-field issues.
If he's available in your league, depending on what size your league is, he's a guy to pick up. And I doubt he's available, but it's possible.
Yeah,
he's got some talent.
Yeah, I would say that. And I mean, look, I'm not out advocating anyone rush out and play Baker Mayfield or anything. I know a lot of people have been asking about that. I'm not a big fan of,
Well, he's hopefully going to make these receivers more viable.
That's the key. I mean, if he plays just good enough to keep these guys in my lineup, that's all I'm asking from him.
Yeah.
And if he gets more, and at some point I'm open to getting him in a lineup, it'll just be a while.
And I'm worried about Duke Johnson. I don't see him coming. Go ahead.
Right. We've heard an awful lot about the team talking about, bringing him into the mix, right? Like, we need to get him more. They paid him over the offseason, and we were kind of hoping that we would see a little more of him. Looking at the snap counts right now, it hasn't happened. He's down, 41%. They've run a lot of plays, 228 plays. So,
that's good.
And the target share, though, is down in the 9% range, and that's not going to cut it for us. We need a little more. The guy was was a solid running back 2 last year in PPR league.
Yeah, he was. He was like the 11th running back in PPR last year, but I think everybody's hoping that wouldn't change a whole lot because his role was supposed to be the same. Well, so far, that has not happened by a lot.
The same and maybe more, and you're right, it has been a disappointment. Looking at the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers not playing as good as we'd like, but he's, of course, playing on a sprained knee. Hasn't practiced until Saturday each week until this week. He got on the practice field Thursday. Now, the Packers don't have real practices Friday. They have real practices Saturday. And that's when they, do a lot of work. But the fact he got on Thursday, he talked about that, and he talks a lot. He doesn't like to miss any practice. So the fact that he got on the field this week going against the Bills, I think a lot of people are, trying to figure out what Buffalo is after last week's game. So here we got a team with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Randall Cobb's a little nicked up this week, right? So maybe the guy I like, my favorite play this week, one of my favorite plays in daily and in a sleeper for me is Geronimo Allison. The running game is hard for me to deal with. How are you handling that?
Well, it got worse because Aaron Jones came in. He got 6 carries. Jamal got 5 carries. Montgomery got 4 carries. Come on, you can't split a pie up into 3 pieces better than that. And even Montgomery had 7 targets and 6 catches. Williams had 3 targets and 2. What a mess. I mean, I don't know what you do with that. There's not enough points there to get one of those guys viable unless they score a touchdown.
Right. And for me, the worry is, Aaron Jones is a guy that a lot of people think has, the kind of running big play ability to get him time. His problem is not as good as a pass blocker as Jamal Williams. Well, who did they just pay a bunch of money to? I think it was the quarterback. So pass protection is pretty important there. Ty Montgomery's a trusted pass protector. But the bigger issue is, look, I mean, they want production too, so he's going to get his turns. But if you want to play any of these guys, you have to deal with the hot hand situation. And for me in fantasy, that's the hardest thing to overcome because, look, your guy, Jamal Williams, could be your guy and you start him. He gets 2 series, plays reasonably well, but they give him a blow, and Aaron Jones comes in and tears off a 30-yard run. He's not coming out, right? Yeah. He's staying in. And, so that's the thing to combat. How do you deal with that?
I don't know how you do. Hopefully you have an option right now. Maybe avoid him for a week and see what happens.
Yeah, I think this might be I think this might be an issue for us all season. We'll be watching and reporting.
It was the
back
fear,
on
but
trends.
you know, I mean, they did get, you know, Aaron was, you know, missed 2 games because of suspension, and he came in and, you know, he split that pie up. It didn't take him a week or 2 to catch up, so he's already getting an equal amount of carries roughly. That's not good. I mean, maybe we just back away and see what happens for a week if you can.
Right. It's worth noting that he was hurt a fair amount in the preseason, so didn't get as much work with the offense then because he was hurt. So maybe this is a train that's coming and that we should be ready to jump on board if it happens. I do think he's the better player in general. All right, let's look at the Sunday night game. Baltimore, Pittsburgh. A lot of times I think about these AFC North games and I think low scoring, 9-7. I don't think I'm thinking that with this one. Look, the Steelers have been putting up phenomenal numbers, and even if Antonio Brown isn't happy about it, he's been relatively productive. Juju Smith-Schuster has been lighting it up, which maybe is part of the problem for Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger's lighting it up. James Conner's faring reasonably well, big opening week and doing okay. Vance McDonald comes in. I think that he adds a little something that they like. The other side of the ball in this one is the Baltimore Ravens, who are the best, as I mentioned, red zone offense this season and ever. 12 trips inside the red zone this season, 12 touchdowns. That's an NFL record. It's made Buck Allen relevant. It's made Mark Andrews relevant, rookie tight end, and we have Hayden Hurst maybe coming back this week. All 3 receivers, John Brown, one of my favorites. I think the coverages this week maybe work for Willie Snead. Michael Crabtree's playing well. Alex Collins, kind of the bit of a disappointment here. What are you doing with Buck Allen when you have him? Is he a must-play flex this for you?
He's been scoring the touchdowns, so yes, I think it all depends on your roster. But he's been getting the ball on the goal line. He's been scoring. He's still splitting time, so he's definitely a guy you want to really seriously consider depending on the rest of your roster.
Right. He's been more productive than Collins, but can we trust that? And that's
Collins,
the issue for me.
That last game, Collins had 18 carries. Buck had 6. Of course, he scored the rushing touchdown. He also got a receiving touchdown. So it's better than splitting 3 ways, but it's tempting to start him. Like I said, it depends on who else you have available. But he's definitely a guy that if you're really needing somebody, he could be a nice flex play.
Our friend Mike Dempsey, our co-host on the Football Diehards show on Sirius, is all about the Buck Allen. Can't start him enough. Loves him to death, and plays him a fair amount. I think plays him as a flex in pretty much all his leagues that he owns him, and he owns him in a number of them. And obviously a great best ball play. Very easy to give that out. Just a couple notes on this in terms of trying to figure out who the playmakers are this week. Our friend Mike Clay at ESPN pointed out the Steelers have given up the most fantasy points to players lined up wide to the left. That's Michael Crabtree an awful lot this week. So
who got he got 10 targets last week also. So he's
right, and Willie Snead, as I mentioned.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Crabtree's probably a pretty good player.
I like that. Look, I don't know who. I'm trying to think of who I wouldn't start in this game. And I mean, that's the thing. We're coming to expect shootouts just in general from the Steelers. They have not played. I mean, they haven't held anyone yet, have they?
No, I'd be a little worried about it. That's a big. All these games are big now, considering. But they got 4 turnovers from Tampa Bay last week, although be it on the road, and won by 3 points. They scored a lot of points, but that's kind of worrisome to me a little bit if I was a Pittsburgh fan. But they are at home. They are at home, and Baltimore's defense, for some reason, just doesn't play as well on the road.
Right. I think it's interesting to know, too, about Ben Roethlisberger, the home-road splits. This is at home.
Yeah.
So nobody worries. The away games, he is horrible in away games, except in late afternoon and prime time. He's pretty good on away games. We saw that in Tampa.
When he's on TV, he plays well?
Right. It's the early game. Yeah, the Steelers like drawing a lot of these weird things that we never have seen before.
Well,
But
maybe
I
they
think
don't matter this week anyway. Well, he's at home anyway, so.
He's at home anyway, but I do think that's something worth noting. Our friend Matt Harmon pointed that out to me, and Marcus Grant has mentioned it as well, that you got to dig a little deeper on that home road. Don't be too simplistic. So watch
yeah,
that.
that's a good point.
Want to close this one out? You have some thoughts on the Oakland Raiders in the red zone.
Well, I just had mentioned it's interesting, to these are data points that are important to have knowledge of, but not necessarily react on them too quickly. But watching Lynch, trying to see how they're utilizing him, and with Jared Cook, he's just gone nuts. And when they finally got in the 10 zone, 5 zone, they threw to Cook when they were on the 8th-yard line. They got it to the 4th. They threw to Cook again, and he thought they scored, and they pulled it back to the 1, and there was a penalty. Then they finally gave Lynch the ball, and I was thinking so out of 3 red zone or 10 zone targets, 1 was to Lynch. That worried me. I mean, I realize Cook is really doing well, but in the past, I think Lynch would have gotten the first opportunity. So what does that mean? I'm not sure, but it's important to know.
I think it's, what interests me is Cook's got like a 20% target share. I mean, Amari Cooper's got 16, Nelson's got 14. I mean, it's been pretty ridiculous up to this point. You wonder how long it can go on. We've seen in the past, if you've been a Jared Cook owner in the past, you realize he generally has about 4 games a year, and then he disappears. Did he have them all 4 in the first month of the season this year? We'll find out this week. But I do think it's interesting. I also think Marshawn Lynch has, become a fairly reliable flex level play. He does get enough at the goal line to keep me happy. And I think maybe as we go on and John Gruden gets a little more faith in him, we'll see him get a little bit more work.
That'd be good. They just need to win a game. I mean, they've snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, or whatever it is. Snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. They certainly did that in Miami, and
in a game without Kenyon Drake,
they had
5 yards.
They had that game won, and they let it go. But they got to be hurting. They need to get a win. They need to get a win. Change that momentum quickly.
We'll see if they can get it this week. And that's it for this week's Bob and Emil Show. We'll try to do this thing every week. If you want to go ahead and shoot us some emails, hit us up on the Twitter. I'm at Football Diehard. Hit the site itself at FF Diehards on the Twitter. Hit the Facebook page, Football Diehards, and throw some questions out or some topics that you might want us to touch on going forward, and we'll be happy to do it.
And we have the chat thing. We have that chat thing too that we put up. You can go to the chat button on the site, ask questions.
Tons of stuff also, of course, content-wise on the site. Tons of columns. Myself, Armando Marsal, John Lobb, Bobby Gomez, Jen Ryan, Brad Cruz, the whole crew, JJ Buck at times. We've got, who else do we got?
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff.
Justin Lanero.
Yeah, Justin, we got the digging in the crates, and the shadow from Gary Davenport. And I probably forgot one.
Yes, no, I think we covered everybody there. I've got all the podcasts, constant news updates. Hit us Sunday morning. We've got the pregame videos with Armando and Bobby. We've got we're doing that Thursday night as well as Sunday, right, Emil?
Yep, that's right. Thursday night, Sunday morning.
The hour before game time. Catch me on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio on the Football Diehard Show every single weekday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Saturday night, we're on the SiriusXM NFL Radio from 8 to 11. And then catch me Sunday mornings on the pregame show. But hit the website while you're listening and watching all these things. Be on the website. Updates coming in. We get you all the inactives in real time as they happen, maybe a little bit in advance of other people, too, on occasion. So check it out. We'll be there, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Beautiful.